Why is my grandma even alive? Carly sneered, loud, filmed, and posted before the cake hit the table. Laughter echoed. No one stopped her. No one defended Evelyn Barrett, not her son, not the guests, not even her own blood. Evelyn didn't cry. She didn't clap back. She just smiled, the kind of smile that signals war behind pearls. By morning, her granddaughter's inheritance was already ash. All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. The cake was beautiful. 3 layers of buttercream, pink peonies pressed into the frosting, and a cursive, Happy 79th Evelyn piped in gold. But the room didn't match the sentiment. The living room of the Barrett family home, Evelyn's home for over 50 years, buzzed with shallow conversation. Cell phones out, eyes flicking more often to screens than to her. Balloons swayed lightly in the air-conditioning hum, but no one seemed to notice them either. Evelyn sat quietly on the floral couch, wearing her navy blue cardigan, one pearl earring missing. She hadn't been able to find the other. No one had asked. Carly's voice cut across the rustle of wrapping paper and polite laughter, sharp and unmistakable. Why is she even alive? It wasn't even a whisper. She said it under a breathless, performative laugh while scrolling through her phone, clearly aiming for shock value. A few of her friends chuckled, unsure if they should. One of them even filmed it. The ring light halo from Carly's recording setup blinked faintly near the kitchen counter. Daniel, standing near the fireplace holding a half-filled glass of scotch, looked up sharply but said nothing. His lips parted slightly as if to object, but then he lowered his gaze. Just like always. Evelyn's fingers curled softly around her teacup. She didn't blink. She didn't flinch. She smiled, actually. The kind of smile people mistake for softness when it's really restraint. She turned her head slowly, letting her gaze travel across each guest. Not lingering, just registering. When they brought out the cake, everyone clapped and shouted in that generic, celebratory way that sounds like filler noise. Evelyn stood up, accepted the knife, and posed for the picture Carly insisted they take for content. She cut a slice but didn't eat it. The frosting felt too thick, the air too stale. She set the plate down after a few bites, wiped her lips with a napkin, and spoke just loud enough to be heard without needing a microphone. "Thank you all for coming. I think I'll call it a night." There was a beat of silence. No one expected her to leave her own birthday party early. Daniel made a vague gesture with his glass. "Mom, you sure? Carly has a slideshow planned." Carly didn't even look up from her phone. "It's fine. Let her rest. Old people in sugar, you know." Lana was already moving. She stepped up beside Evelyn with a steady hand on her back. "I'll walk you upstairs." Evelyn didn't correct her. Instead, she whispered, "I don't think I want to sleep here tonight." Lana nodded once, no questions. "I'll help you pack a small bag." Upstairs, the hallway smelled like lemon floor polish and dust that hadn't been disturbed in weeks. Evelyn opened her bedroom closet and reached for the overnight tote she used when Harold was alive and they used to visit the coast. "I must have aged 20 years in the past hour," Evelyn murmured, folding a nightgown with slow precision. Lana helped zip the bag and glanced toward the door. "You don't owe any of them anything." Evelyn's mouth tightened, not with bitterness, but something colder, quieter. "No, but I do owe something to myself." Downstairs, laughter erupted again. Carly's laugh, unmistakable and high-pitched like a victory bell. Evelyn turned toward the mirror. She smoothed a strand of silver hair behind her ear and took a long, unhurried look at herself. "I'm not going to die in this house," she said, not to Lana, not to anyone in particular, not the way they expect. She picked up her tote, stepped into her shoes, and walked out without saying goodbye. Outside, the wind shifted, the porch light flickered as they descended the steps. Evelyn paused at the edge of the walkway. Something in her face had changed, not sadness, not anger, something more deliberate. "I think it's time," she said quietly. Lana tilted her head. "Time for what?" Evelyn looked back at the house, the one she'd paid off, repaired, protected through every storm. Her eyes didn't blink. To clean house. And with that, she stepped into Lana's car, the door shutting with a definitive click behind her. The motel was quiet. A roadside inn just off Sandy Boulevard, wedged between a shuttered diner and a chain pharmacy, its gravel lot lit dimly by a flickering pole lamp. Evelyn slid the deadbolt across the door, then pulled the curtains closed with slow, deliberate hands. She didn't sit. She walked to the little desk beneath the window, set down her overnight bag, and pulled from it a leather briefcase, cracked at the corners but still strong. She hadn't opened it in over 15 years, not since Harold's funeral. The zipper stuck halfway. She jiggled it loose and opened the case. Photos, some Polaroids, some curling at the edges, a paperclip bundle of Harold's medical reports, her own pension statements from Portland Public Schools, and beneath them all, the original trust packet, cream cardstock with thick brass fasteners, her name embossed across the top, Evelyn C. Barrett, sole holder. She ran her fingers over the ink like it might vanish if she blinked too hard. At the very bottom was the deed to the house, the legal kind, dry in language but devastating in implication, still in her name. Evelyn exhaled a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. No matter what Carly thought, the house wasn't a family heirloom. It was hers. Paid in full, earned the hard way, subbing back-to-back classes, skipping vacations, stitching curtains instead of buying them. That house had been her legacy, and they treated it like a backdrop for Instagram reels. Then she saw it. A white envelope, sealed and labeled in Harold's cursive, stiffer in his last years but still legible. Amendments, to be read only if necessary. She sat down slowly. Her hands didn't tremble, but her breath caught once before steadying. She slid a letter opener through the glue seam. Inside, 3 pages, neatly typed, dated just 4 weeks before his death. If Evelyn chooses to revise the estate, I support her fully. She has endured far more than I ever protected her from. If you're reading this, Evie, do what you have to, especially where Carly is concerned. Tears welled, but didn't fall. She folded the letter once, placed it back in its envelope, and reached for her phone. The contact list hadn't changed. She scrolled to Deshawn Reed, her estate attorney, sharp and tactful, and one of the few people she trusted not to condescend. She texted, "Need a restructuring conversation, quietly. Tomorrow, if possible." The response came within minutes. "Understood. I'll come to you. Bring any documents you want reviewed." By morning, Evelyn was already dressed, hair pinned, briefcase in hand. She met Deshawn at a corner cafe in Selwood, where the booths were too narrow and the coffee always came in heavy ceramic mugs. She chose the one seat with sunlight on her face. Deshawn didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Is this about Carly?" Evelyn opened the briefcase like a surgeon unwrapping instruments. "It's about legacy and boundaries and cleaning house." He raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Let's restructure everything, quietly." They talked for over an hour. Evelyn handed over documents, clarified intentions, and rewrote the executor chain. No more Carly, no more Daniel or Kim either. A neutral trustee, clean lines, no ambiguity. By the time the check arrived, her voice felt stronger than it had in years. Lana picked her up from the cafe, rolling down the window before Evelyn even reached the car. "Well, it's started," Evelyn said, sliding into the passenger seat. "But I'll need your help drafting something formal." "Removing her?" "From everything," Evelyn said, with grace and finality. Back at the house, their house, but not home anymore, Evelyn walked through the foyer like a guest. She ignored the stack of mail on the table, the framed family photo from Carly's graduation. Instead, she went straight to the kitchen phone and called the notary. "I'll need someone on site this week," she said, her tone crisp. The voice on the other end asked for a reason. "Estate adjustment," Evelyn replied, then added, almost like a whisper, "A long overdue one." She hung up. The phone clicked against the receiver with a satisfying thunk. As she turned back toward the staircase, she saw Carly's tablet left open on the counter. Screen still glowing, a paused video thumbnail frozen mid-laugh. Evelyn didn't touch it. She didn't have to. By the end of the week, her signature would redraw the lines. And no one in that house even knew a war had begun? It was just after midnight when Evelyn slipped into the upstairs office, the one nobody used anymore except to charge laptops and toss unopened mail. A spiderweb stitched itself across the corner of the window pane, silver against the dark. She didn't bother to turn on the overhead light. The blue glow of Carly's tablet still pulsed on the desk, casting faint shadows across the keyboard. Evelyn tapped the screen. No password, just a lazily minimized window still open to Instagram. The video auto-played, Carly in her influencer voice. You guys, listen to this. My grandma said the funniest thing today. I asked her where her hair went and she said, "In the garden with my patients." Carly erupted into laughter, fake and shrill. The video cut to a slow zoom in on Evelyn laughing, unaware she was being filmed. Then another cut, to Evelyn trying to blow out her candle, only the wick never quite catching, flickering out weakly. Carly had edited in circus music over it. Text on the screen, "Can grandma gone wrong, she's still here though." Evelyn stared at it, her face frozen in a half-smile, caught mid-blink. The kind of moment that never looks good, no matter who you are. No permission, no dignity, just bait. She hit the download icon. By sunrise, she'd sent the file to Deshawn. Attached was a note typed in all lowercase but without softness. This should help justify exclusion, no more questions. Deshawn didn't reply with words. He just sent back a green check emoji and a timestamp for their next call. That afternoon, Evelyn sat at the dining table, the same one where Harold once carved turkeys and their daughter scribbled cursive practice in blue ink. Now she used it as a war room. Legal packets on the left, donation receipts in the center, a red leather-bound notebook on the right, already half full of notes written in Evelyn's tidy cursive. She adjusted the trust again. It felt less like editing and more like exercising. Daniel and Kim, scratched from the backup executor line. Lana in? No, too personal, too easy to drag into court. She chose a firm Deshawn recommended, impartial, discreet, incorruptible. The new beneficiaries read like a love letter to the woman she used to be. 3 local nonprofits for underserved teachers, 2 mental health clinics, 1 college scholarship fund named after her daughter Abigail. She printed the updated version and slid it into a fresh folder marked Final. Later, Lana joined her, her arms full of archival boxes from the attic. "Didn't realize how many of these heirlooms were just sitting up there," she said, blowing dust from a lid. Evelyn nodded. "They've been waiting for their proper owners." The 2 women unpacked china, jewelry, embroidered linens, and hand-carved wooden toys. Evelyn made a small stack for Grayson, her great-grandson, another for Lana, a third labeled "to be donated." The rest she inventoried with exacting care. "Do you want me to put these photos in albums?" Lana asked, thumbing through a stack of Polaroids. "No," Evelyn said gently. "They stay loose. They were never meant to be curated, just remembered." As the afternoon wore on, Lana paused while holding a glass perfume bottle shaped like a swan. She set it down and looked at Evelyn. "You okay?" "I'm past okay," Evelyn said. "I'm accountable." There was silence between them for a long moment, comfortable and heavy. Later that night, Evelyn sat alone in her garden shed, flipping through a thick envelope of old donation forms and church bulletins. Her daughter's name showed up again and again, quiet acts of generosity no one ever knew about, books paid for, coats left at back doors, tutoring scholarships under aliases. She started filling out online donation forms, all anonymously, all in her daughter's honor. Each confirmation pinged her inbox like the tolling of bells. By the time she closed her laptop, it was nearly 2 a.m. The only sound was the hum of distant sprinklers outside. She stared at the last screen. "Thank you for supporting Portland Learning Bridge, in memory of Abigail Barrett." A tear finally slipped down her cheek, not for the cruelty she'd endured, but for the kindness her daughter had given, unrecognized. She whispered almost inaudibly, "They won't erase you." Then, just before heading inside, Evelyn paused in the hallway, spotting her old school ID badge pinned to a corkboard. It was faded and bent, but she left it there. She didn't need to prove who she was. Tomorrow, she'd call the notary again. There was one more signature needed before Carly's name vanished from every page. The morning light crept slowly across the hardwood floors of Evelyn's bedroom, stopping at the base of the armoire. She hadn't opened it in years, not since Abigail passed. Her fingers paused on the brass handle, then pulled. Inside hung only a few things: a coat from the 80s, a cedar box of old perfume bottles, and the will inventory folder, archived in legal-size manila, labeled in Abigail's handwriting. Evelyn lifted it out and sat down on the bed. She flipped through page after page: sterling silver spoons, a quilt sewn from her grandmother's dresses, 2 sets of pearl studs, and a gold charm bracelet. Abigail's, passed to Evelyn when she turned 50. One of the only things they hadn't buried with her. She flipped open her tablet and searched Carly's Instagram. It didn't take long. There she was, Carly, perched on the hood of a rented convertible, flashing a manicured hand with the charm bracelet looped around her wrist. A close-up video showed her playing with the charms, giggling. "This old thing? Family inheritance? You know how it is." Evelyn leaned back in her chair, her jaw tightening. She hadn't given that bracelet to anyone. She remembered exactly where it had been, in the bottom drawer of the vanity, tucked in a velvet pouch beneath Abigail's photo. Carly must have taken it the same week she'd accidentally locked herself in Evelyn's room during spring cleaning. The click of betrayal wasn't loud. It was clinical. She picked up the phone and dialed Deshawn. "Yes?" His voice was alert, as if he sensed this wasn't a casual check-in. "It's the charm bracelet," she said, calm but cold. "The one from Abigail." Deshawn didn't miss a beat. "You documented it in the will inventory?" "Page 6. "Then I'm filing an asset misappropriation claim," he said, "and drafting a notice of retrieval. It'll be formal, but quiet." "I want Lana to deliver it," Evelyn added. "In public." He paused. "Are you sure? I want her to see it come from someone who still knows how to look me in the eye." By Sunday brunch, Lana stepped into the bistro off Hawthorne, unbothered by the crowd or the smell of burnt hollandaise. Carly sat near the window, surrounded by her influencer circle, all wearing filtered expressions and sipping on overpriced mimosas. Lana approached the table like a lawyer in flats. She placed the envelope down between Carly's almond croissant and a portable ring light. "This is a formal notice of claim regarding the bracelet you're wearing. It was never yours to wear." Carly blinked, confused for half a second, then smirked. "Wow, Grandma sent you to serve me at brunch? That's cute." Lana didn't blink. "She sent me because you don't scare me." A woman from the next table started filming. Carly flushed, momentarily unsure whether to escalate or diffuse, but then she stood, raised her voice, and performed. "This is harassment," she said to no one in particular. "She's senile. My grandma has dementia. She doesn't even remember giving it to me." Lana remained silent, the envelope still untouched on the table. Carly swatted it off with a dramatic flair. But the video went viral by that evening. What Carly hadn't noticed was that her bracelet sparkled too brightly under the bistro lights, each charm reflecting her face as she shouted. It didn't play like a power move. It looked like theft, and entitlement, and exposure. Heirloom heist started trending locally. That night, Evelyn sat in her garden with her old transistor radio and listened to classical piano drift softly through the warm August air. The hydrangeas had bloomed too early that year, and she trimmed one absent-mindedly. Lana arrived just past dusk. "She melted down." Evelyn nodded. "On camera?" "Plenty." "Good," she said, not with malice but with purpose. "It's not about punishing her. It's about naming the truth." She took the envelope from Lana and opened it again, not to reread it, but to feel the weight of it one last time. She would file it in the red notebook under, reclaimed. Before going inside, Evelyn glanced up at the moon, perfectly full. "I used to think silence was safer," she murmured. "And now?" Lana asked. "I think silence lets people steal in peace." The knock came just before noon, not firm, not hesitant, just rehearsed. Evelyn didn't answer right away. She was in the study, finishing a handwritten thank you card to an old colleague whose grandson had just received a teaching scholarship in Abigail's name. When the knock came again, 2 soft raps and a long pause, she folded the card, set down her pen, and stood. At the door stood Daniel. He wore a rumpled blazer like armor and held a paper coffee cup as a peace offering. Evelyn noticed his eyes first, tired, darting, unsure whether this was a reunion or an ambush. "Mom," he said. "Daniel." She stepped aside. "Come in, if you're ready to stop pretending." He flinched slightly but entered. They sat in the sunroom, the same one where Abigail used to sketch birds while Evelyn corrected homework. Now the air hung with trimmed lavender and something far less fragrant, unfinished conversations. Daniel cleared his throat. "I wanted to talk about Carly, about what happened at that brunch." Evelyn said nothing. She just reached for a slim, red folder on the table beside her and laid it flat between them. "I've gathered a few things," she said. Inside were printed screenshots, Instagram captions, TikTok clips, even comments Carly had left under viral posts. Some were cruel, others dismissive. One, Evelyn had highlighted, "She's basically just furniture with opinions." Daniel didn't touch the folder. His hands stayed on his lap, his thumb circling his wedding ring. "She jokes," he said quietly. "That's just her online tone." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Humor doesn't come with inheritance, Daniel." He looked away toward the garden. "She didn't mean all of it. She meant enough of it to say it publicly, repeatedly, without apology." He exhaled slowly. "Look, I'm not here to excuse everything. I'm just asking, maybe she's young, impulsive. Maybe this is something she can grow through if we give her space." Evelyn leaned forward. "You think this is about growth?" "Daniel, I raised a daughter who brought food to students' homes when their pantries were empty. You're asking me to hand over a legacy to someone who mocks grief for clout?" Daniel sat back. For the first time, he looked ashamed. She picked up another folder, thicker, marked amendments. She slid it toward him. "Here are the new terms. Carly is no longer a beneficiary. You and Kim are removed as backup executors. The house will be passed into a trust managed by a third party." He didn't touch it. His jaw worked, silently. After a long moment, he said, "I didn't know you'd already signed." "I signed the day she stole from my daughter's memory," Evelyn replied, steady as stone. Daniel's voice cracked. "So this is it then? You're cutting her off." "No," Evelyn said softly. "I'm cutting myself free." He looked like he wanted to argue, maybe even beg, but all that came out was a small, sad shake of his head. "I just didn't expect it to come to this." "You didn't expect me to act," she corrected. "You expected me to absorb." He stood slowly. The coffee cup remained untouched on the table, his face folded into itself, too proud to cry, too numb to apologize. "You're protecting her," Evelyn said, watching him closely, "which means you're choosing her." Daniel didn't respond. He walked to the front door with a stiffness that looked like grief, but Evelyn didn't follow him. He hesitated at the threshold, the way he used to when he was 7 and afraid of thunderstorms. He didn't hug her. The door closed gently behind him. That evening, Evelyn posted a photo to the neighborhood message board. It was a simple picture of the house, front porch bathed in golden light, her welcome mat rolled up and removed. The caption read, "Starting a new chapter. The door is now closed to unkindness. Love to all who still remember what grace looks like." It was subtle, but it wasn't private. Within the hour, Lana texted, "You just set the whole neighborhood on fire. Half the church group is asking if Carly did something criminal." Evelyn smiled just faintly. "Not criminal," she replied. "Just unforgivable." The envelope came in the mail, actual mail, not a ping or notification. Thick paper, local paper header, a hand-signed letter in blue ink. "We've followed your charitable work. We'd be honored to feature your story in our Local Legends series. Just a few questions, at your convenience." Evelyn read it 3 times. She set it down on the kitchen table, poured herself a cup of coffee, then read it again. There was no mention of Carly, no mention of drama, just an interest in her, Evelyn Barrett, former teacher, community advocate, and now the quiet architect behind several anonymous donations lighting up Portland's nonprofit world. She picked up the phone and called the number on the letter. "I'll do it," she said, "but one condition. It's my story, mine alone, no family details." The voice on the other end was warm, professional. "Understood, Ms. Barrett. We want your voice, not gossip. They met at a quiet bench by the rose garden. Evelyn wore a navy jacket, the pin of a book-shaped brooch at her collar. The reporter, a young woman named Lex, carried a legal pad and a sense of reverence. I looked you up, Lex said as she sat. You taught for over 30 years. 34, Evelyn corrected gently. Math and history, with a little music on Fridays. Lex smiled. And the donations, Portland Learning Bridge, the coat drives, the tutoring network. Those were just extensions, Evelyn replied. Teaching doesn't stop when the bell rings. They talked for an hour. Evelyn told stories about students who couldn't read in second grade but graduated college. She described Abigail's first solo piano recital in that same rose garden. She mentioned her late husband Harold only once and never said Carly's name. I believe in pruning, she said at one point. A tree can't carry every branch. Some rot quietly. Others choke the rest. Lex blinked. That's a quote I'll probably steal. Evelyn smiled. Then credit the gardener. The photo was taken at the end. Evelyn seated on the bench, eyes forward, the blooms behind her just starting to turn late summer gold. The article posted 3 days later. The teacher who stayed, Evelyn Barrett, and the legacy of quiet work. It was elegant, respectful, no clickbait, just a portrait of a woman who had shaped a generation and still showed up to every food drive in the rain. There was even a section about the red notebook she used to track where every dollar went. A private journal of public hope, the article called it. The comments filled quickly. She taught my mom. She used to keep granola bars in her desk for hungry kids. Ms. Barrett was the realest teacher I ever had. She once walked me to my bus when I forgot where it was. We don't deserve Evelyn Barrett. Then Carly posted. On her main profile, above a filtered selfie with an iced latte, she wrote, We love Grandma so much, so proud of all she's done, Jero blessed. It wasn't received the way she'd hoped. The top comment was brutal. You loved her? Didn't you make fun of her hair last month? Another, Girl, this isn't a redemption arc. It's a receipt. Even her followers didn't shield her. Publicly humiliating your grandma on TikTok while she saves school kids in secret? You need to log off. Imagine being the villain in your own family's legacy. Carly deleted the post within hours, but the screenshots lived on. That evening, Evelyn opened her window and sat with a stack of cards sent by old students, some handwritten, others typed on office printers. She read each one slowly, her hand brushing over names she hadn't seen in decades. You made room for me when no one else did. I still remember when you said I wasn't dumb, just tired. My son's teacher reminds me of you. Lana stopped by just after sunset with flowers and a bottle of elderberry wine. You're viral, she said, setting the bouquet down, but the good kind. Evelyn chuckled softly. I never thought elder icon would be a phrase I'd hear. You've earned it, Lana said, and Carly just earned herself a new nickname, Grandma Grifter. They both laughed, but Evelyn's smile didn't last long. She stood and walked to the cabinet by the hallway, pulled out a photo, Abigail holding Grayson as a baby, Carly pouting in the background. I told Lex the story of this house, she said quietly, but I didn't tell her about the cracks. Lana nodded, serious now. And? Evelyn set the photo face down. I think it's time someone did. The attic hadn't been opened in months. Dust hung thick in the air like memory itself, clinging to beams and the edges of cardboard boxes labeled in Abigail's script. Evelyn moved slowly, her knees aching in protest, but her hands certain. She was looking for something, though she hadn't known what exactly, until her fingers brushed the corner of the green canvas trunk. It was the one Abigail had used in high school, the one she refused to part with, even after she got her first real job and moved into a studio apartment with water-stained ceilings and hope so thick it covered the cracks. Evelyn pulled it forward, coughing once as a plume of dust rose into the shafts of afternoon light. Inside, school yearbooks, piano sheet music, a stack of birthday cards, and a leather-bound journal, faded purple. Abigail's name etched into the inner flap. She carried it downstairs like sacred text. Back in the kitchen, Evelyn sat at the table and opened to a random page. Abigail's handwriting, slanted, fast, always with a flourish, filled the lines. Most entries were snapshots of a young woman trying to find herself, teaching frustrations, dating rants, grocery lists mixed with gratitude. But then Evelyn turned to a page near the middle. The date, March 14th, 2005. 20 years ago, almost to the day. If I'm ever gone, promise me you won't let Carly turn cruel. She's got charm, but it's slipping into sharpness. Don't let her trade softness for power. She's still a child now, but if I vanish, please don't let her grow up thinking love is a game. Evelyn sat very still. Her eyes filled before she noticed. Not sobbing, just the quiet kind of weeping that comes when you find a voice that's been missing from your life for far too long. She pressed her palm to the page like she might absorb her daughter's warmth through the ink. After a long while, she wiped her face, stood up, and walked to the scanner. She made 2 copies, clean, crisp, one for Lana, one for Deshawn. She tucked the original back inside the journal, wrapped the cover in a linen napkin like it might bruise, and placed it in the drawer beside the red notebook. Then she composed 2 emails, no subject lines, just attachments, and a single sentence. It was never just instinct, it was instruction. Lana replied first. She saw this coming. I think she always did. Then Deshawn. It's heartbreaking, and it seals everything. Evelyn stared at the screen for a moment, then exhaled slowly. A calm washed over her, not relief exactly, but clarity. Abigail's words had reached her just when she needed them most. Not from the grave, but from memory's edge. That night, Evelyn opened a fresh journal of her own. Deep green cover. Unlined pages. She turned to the first page and wrote in neat script, "For Grayson, when you're ready, not before." She paused, then began writing. This house was built with calloused hands and unpaid overtime. It was held together by mismatched tiles and freezer casseroles. It raised a son who drifted and a daughter who bloomed. It outlived a husband, a dog, and the kind of faith that once answered every question with a hymn. But it never outlived you. You are the reason I held the line. She kept writing about her childhood, her fears, her failures, about what it meant to be underestimated and what it cost to be dignified in a world that confused silence for consent. She didn't name Carly, but she described betrayal. She didn't condemn Daniel, but she cataloged his absences. Every line was a hand extended, not to pull Grayson toward revenge, but toward remembrance. Midway through page 5, Evelyn stopped to rest her hand. The ink shimmered faintly in the lamplight. Outside, the wind shifted, the kind of breeze that whispered through trees like voices speaking all at once. She stood, walked to the hallway, and opened the small cedar chest beneath the mirror. Inside, nestled in tissue, was a photo of Grayson as a toddler, sitting on Abigail's lap. Evelyn added it to the front of the journal. No caption. The truth didn't need one. She returned to the table and wrote 4 final words at the bottom of the page. You were always the point. The envelope was blush pink with gold calligraphy, Carly's idea of elegance. It arrived sealed in a wax-stamped sleeve, thick enough to feel important. Evelyn didn't need to open it to know what it was. She did anyway. Inside, a glossy invitation to the bridal shower, pale florals, soft cursive. Please join us in celebrating Carly Barrett, champagne, charcuterie, and love. At the bottom, in smaller font, photos and footage may be shared online. Evelyn read the line twice, then again. She stood, walked to her study, and pulled out her own stationery. Crisp ivory with a navy blue monogram, simple and final. She drafted a response in firm, slanted script. Dear Carly, thank you for the invitation. I respectfully decline. Please consider this formal notice. I do not consent to the use of my name, image, or likeness in any part of your event, digital or otherwise. Also enclosed, a notarized copy of my amended will. You once asked why I'm still alive. To finish the work of removing you. Evelyn C. Barrett. She folded it carefully, sealed it in a white envelope, and tucked the will copy behind the card. Then she walked to the kitchen and called the courier service. She didn't want a delay. She wanted confirmation of delivery before sunset. By noon the next day, the message was received and blocked. Carly didn't respond directly. Instead, she opened her Instagram and posted a story to her 78,000 followers. Update on the wedding stuff. We're keeping the guest list tight. Some family just doesn't vibe with our energy anymore. Sad, but, people age and get confused. There it was, wrapped in fake sentiment, sprayed with filters and plausible deniability. Her response. Evelyn saw it while watering her succulents. Lana had sent a screenshot. Evelyn didn't reply. She simply turned the tap off and placed the phone face down on the window ledge. She didn't need to argue. She'd already won the silence. Now it was time to win the story. That evening, Lana posted a photo of Evelyn's local Legends newspaper article, still taped up in the window of the downtown co-op. She captioned it, "Confused? She built 3 careers, mentored thousands, and outlived everyone's excuses." Underneath it, she added a direct donation link to Portland Learning Bridge. Within hours, the post had more engagement than Carly's entire bridal announcement thread. By morning, the community message board had 3 new posts from former students. "Donated in Ms. Barrett's honor, because I do remember what she did for us. My kid just got a coat through the Abigail Fund. Evelyn deserves more than that granddaughter. How do we nominate her for the Hall of Fame or something?" The wave had turned. That Friday, Evelyn stepped outside to check her mail. Folded between catalogs and political flyers was a handwritten letter from someone she hadn't spoken to in 2 decades, Jillian Hartwell, a mother of one of Evelyn's former students, Carly's 2nd grade teacher too. The note read simply, "I remember Abigail's funeral. You read the poem from memory. Carly wouldn't stop fidgeting in the pew. Now I understand why you looked so tired. I've just made a donation to the scholarship in her name. For what it's worth, I see you. I always did." Evelyn didn't cry, but she did smile. Meanwhile, in a carefully curated corner of social media, Carly posted a new video. Her holding a glass of rosé, walking through a rooftop tasting menu, laughing just a little too loudly. "Some people won't be attending the shower," she said into the camera. "But it's okay. We celebrate the ones who show up. The rest, they fade." But in the comments, the tide had changed. "How dare you shade your grandma after everything she's done? Funny how she's confused, but you're the one getting dropped from the will. Girl, maybe you should fade." Carly turned off the comments by midnight. Later that weekend, Evelyn placed a small stack of fresh checks into a stamped envelope, donations to 3 causes Abigail once loved. She attached a post-it that read, "From Evelyn B. in honor of the future she never got to finish." She walked it to the mailbox herself. No fanfare, no cameras, just wind, just resolve. The request came as a typed email, brief, formal, and a little nervous. Subject, "A private conversation, if you're willing." From Mark Ellison to evelynberedwoodmail.net. Message, "Ms. Barrett. If possible, I'd like to speak with you privately. No cameras, no intermediaries, just clarity. My cell is below, if you're willing to meet." Evelyn stared at the screen for a moment, then looked out the kitchen window toward the hydrangeas. The late sun cast long shadows across the porch, where Abigail used to sit and play scales on her portable keyboard. She picked up her landline, not the cell Carly had tried to text into oblivion, and called the number. Mark answered on the 2nd ring. "Hello? Bring a notepad," Evelyn said calmly. "You'll want to write some of this down." They met at the coffee house off Burnside. No frills, no background violin, just mugs thick as bricks and mismatched chairs. Mark looked younger than she remembered. Earnest, button-down shirt too stiff for comfort. He stood when she entered. Evelyn didn't offer a hug. "Thank you for agreeing," he said as they sat. "I assume this isn't about cake flavors." Mark smiled tightly, then ran a hand through his hair. "It's about Carly." Evelyn reached into her bag and slid a manila folder across the table. "Then I came prepared." Inside, screenshots of Carly's social posts, mocking Evelyn's voice, her clothes, her breathing. Messages sent to friends laughing about editing grandma out of her own birthday footage. A transcript of the brunch meltdown, copies of public comments beneath Carly's latest video, ones she couldn't delete fast enough. Mark flipped through slowly. Each page quieted him further. "I knew she could be sharp," he said, "but I didn't know it was this calculated." "She rewrites truth mid-sentence," Evelyn said. "It's not lying, it's performance, and she always makes herself the star." He leaned back, rubbing his thumb against the ceramic mug. "She says you've been cold, distant, controlling. She says whatever justifies the next excuse," Evelyn replied. "Tell me, Mark, has she ever taken responsibility for anything she's done? Even once?" Mark hesitated, then shook his head. "She's funny and magnetic, but I've felt it. The way she shapes conversations, shifts blame. I used to think it was just confidence." Evelyn looked at him, steadily, evenly. "She uses people. Just be sure you're not next." Mark closed the folder gently and placed it between them. "I need to think," he said. "This is a lot." Evelyn nodded. "It should be." 2 days later, the announcement came, not through a glossy Instagram story or a Pinterest-worthy text blast, but in a simple text message sent to the bridal party. "Hi everyone, just a heads up. We've decided to postpone the wedding. We'll keep you updated. Please don't ask for details. Love, Carly and Mark." Carly didn't even post that one herself. Mark did. The silence from her feed was deafening. By the next morning, Lana texted Evelyn 3 words. "It actually happened." Evelyn didn't respond. She simply walked to the hallway and slid Mark's untouched folder into the cedar chest beside the journal. No triumph, no glee, just the quiet satisfaction of gravity doing what it always does, pulling things to ground. Carly's rage didn't stay quiet for long. By sunset, she was live on Instagram, sobbing into her phone camera, voice cracking and mascara trailing down her cheeks. "Some people just can't let go of the past," she wept. "They poison everything they touch. I was building something beautiful and now it's ruined." She didn't say Evelyn's name, but she didn't need to. The subtext was neon. Her followers, though, were less forgiving now. "You bullied your grandma and called it content. This isn't sabotage, it's consequence. Girl, you really messed with the one person whose receipts are printed and notarized." He dodged a bullet. "We're just sad it took him this long." She ended the stream abruptly and deactivated comments again. That night, Evelyn sat in the garden with a single lantern glowing beside her. She didn't scroll. She didn't gloat. She simply opened her journal and added 1 line beneath her last entry. "The truth doesn't need teeth, it just needs time." She looked up at the stars. So many, so still. And somewhere across town, Carly was realizing, perhaps for the first time, that influence is not the same thing as integrity. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, just as Evelyn was repotting her African violets. She answered on the 3rd ring, wiping her hands on a dish towel and balancing the phone between her shoulder and chin. "Hi, Grandma." Grayson's voice was soft, polite, but with an undertone of nervous excitement she recognized from the days when Abigail used to let him climb up on the piano bench just to tap a single note. "Hello, sweetheart," Evelyn said, smiling without even trying. "I was wondering, would it be okay if I helped plan your next birthday?" Evelyn froze. Her hands still hovered above the soil. The memory of her last birthday, the insult disguised as a joke, the cake she didn't eat, the laugh she didn't return, rose in her throat like smoke. "I mean," Grayson continued quickly, "only if you want one. Nothing big. But I just thought maybe this year we could do something. That feels like you." Evelyn closed her eyes. A long pause. "Grayson," she said, "I would love that, but there's one condition." "Anything." "Carly doesn't come." Silence. Then a breath of quiet relief on the line. "I already assumed that." Planning began the next day. Lana came over with a yellow legal pad, 2 bottles of lemonade, and a calendar marked with community events. Grayson joined via video chat, offering to design custom invites and asking if he could read a short speech at the event. Evelyn watched him on the screen, shoulders squared, hair neatly parted, a quiet confidence she hadn't seen in any Barrett for years. She saw Abigail in the way he listened more than he talked. "This is your legacy," Lana whispered once Grayson had signed off, "and it's blooming in real time." The event was set for Evelyn's 80th, a milestone the family once mocked as ceremonial, now reclaimed as sacred. The old community center on Fremont Street offered their newly renovated hall. Dozens of her former students RSVP'd with handwritten notes or email chains that read like reunion letters. One signed off with, "Mrs. Barrett saved me from repeating 8th grade math and from giving up on myself." A week before the party, the mayor's office emailed, "Subject, recognition presentation request. In honor of your educational service and ongoing community impact, we'd like to present you with a civic plaque at your birthday event. Let us know how you'd like it inscribed." Evelyn stared at the blinking cursor in the text field, then typed, "For every child who didn't fit the mold, thank you for teaching me how to break it." The day of the party arrived with no chaos, no crisis, no Carly. Grayson greeted guests in a navy button-down, sleeves rolled to the elbow like his grandfather used to wear. Lana managed the kitchen and volunteers like a campaign organizer. Tables were lined with modest bouquets, framed photos from Evelyn's teaching years, and hand-painted signs that read, "Legacy is what you plant, not what you leave behind." Evelyn entered quietly, dressed in forest green with a pin of Abigail's brooch fastened to her shoulder. Applause rippled through the room, not performative or obligatory, but warm and full. Real. The mayor arrived midway through, carrying a wooden plaque inlaid with bronze. She handed it to Evelyn with a handshake and said, "We've seen a lot of educators retire, but very few endure. You, Ms. Barrett, endured with grace." Evelyn accepted the award, but her eyes were on Grayson, standing just off to the side, holding a note card, heart clearly racing. He stepped up to the mic. "I didn't get to know my mom," he began, "but I got to know the woman who made her into someone worth naming. Evelyn Barrett raised generations, some by birth, most by choice, and what I've learned from her is simple." He looked directly at Evelyn. "Silence isn't strength. Grace is. Grace that stands firm, even when no one's watching." The applause that followed shook the walls. After the last guest left, Evelyn stood alone in the community center, watching the light filter through the stained glass window over the door. Lana approached with a smile. "So, how was it?" Evelyn didn't hesitate. "Now that's a party." They laughed, tired, full, unburdened. But Evelyn's eyes lingered on the plaque in her hands. She wasn't done yet. The courthouse smelled of old paper and pride, oak benches polished to a dull sheen, marble echoing every footstep like memory amplified. Evelyn sat still in the front row, hands folded neatly over a leather clutch. Her posture held decades of discipline. She didn't blink when Carly entered, wearing pale pink and stiff nerves disguised as confidence. This wasn't a trial, it was a hearing. One Carly had insisted on. Petition for injunction, claiming emotional defamation, demanding Evelyn cease slandering her reputation on public platforms. No lawyer with a conscience would have filed it, but Carly had found one with a subscription to vanity and a need for retainer checks. Deshawn stood at the plaintiff's table, unbothered. His expression was quiet thunder. On the monitor beside him, a PDF, Exhibit Packet Number 3. Barrett v. Barrett, Social Media History, 2017-2025. Slide after slide, screenshots of Carly's videos, captions, snide comments, hashtags meant to provoke. Wrinkled wisdom, but she's still here though. She thinks the will is a sacred scroll. Somebody help her log off. A meme showing Evelyn nodding off during church with the caption, "When the sermon's older than the congregants." The judge, a silver-haired woman with a thin voice and sharp eyes, adjusted her glasses and looked toward Carly's table. "These posts are yours, Ms. Barrett." Carly glanced at her lawyer. "Some were jokes." "Ma'am," the judge said calmly, "this is a court of law, not a content calendar." Deshawn cleared his throat, lifting only one sheet of paper. "Your Honor, the defendant has not posted, spoken publicly, or acted outside her legal rights. This is not defamation. This is documentation, a record of how one woman has been systematically disrespected, then blamed for her reaction." The judge nodded once, slowly. "I agree." She turned toward Carly. "Dismissing the petition?" Frivolous and unsupported, let the record show. The respondent's silence does not make her a villain, it makes her patient. Evelyn didn't move, she hadn't spoken once. But across the aisle, Carly's face cracked. The performance was wearing thin, and the room wasn't buying tickets anymore. Outside, the Portland air was cool and overcast, one of those late spring days that teetered between drizzle and clarity. Reporters waited at the foot of the courthouse steps, not many, but enough to make the exit feel like a scene. A young woman with cropped hair and a press badge lifted a recorder as Evelyn passed. "Ms. Barrett, any comment on today's hearing?" Evelyn stopped. The crowd hushed, just slightly. She looked into the reporter's eyes, not harshly, not kindly, just directly. "I'm still alive," she said. She should ask herself why. Then she turned and walked down the steps, her heels tapping against the stone like punctuation marks. Later that night, Evelyn placed the court transcript in her red notebook under a new tab, Restraint. She poured herself a cup of mint tea and returned to the porch. Lana joined her with a blanket and the evening paper, already printed with a sidebar blurb. Judge sides with Barrett matriarch, a legacy protected. "She's unraveling," Lana said softly. "No," Evelyn replied, "she's realizing." Lana folded the paper and looked out at the quiet street. "She'll retaliate." "She'll try," Evelyn said, setting her teacup down with care. "But the difference now is that I don't have to defend myself." She tapped the notebook once, then closed it. "I already won. I just let time catch up." It began with one envelope, hand-addressed, no return label, the kind of letter that arrived when people still cared about ink and stamps. Evelyn opened it cautiously, then slowly smiled. Inside was a note written on loose-leaf paper, "Dear Mrs. Barrett, you might not remember me. I was the kid with the stutter in room 204. You let me read aloud at my own pace, even when it made the others squirm. I teach second grade now. Because of you." She read it twice. By the end of the week, there were 7 more, some typed, some scribbled. One from a woman who once struggled through algebra but now managed logistics for a hospital. Another from a man who used to eat lunch alone in the hallway, now the owner of a bakery that donates every Friday to food pantries. They came from all over the city, some from out of state. One simply said, "You were my proof that grown-ups could be good." Evelyn started stacking them in a wooden tray beside her armchair, then a second tray, then a small accordion file labeled Barrett, E, Gratitude. Lana stopped by one afternoon and rifled through a few of them. "You're going to need a bigger filing cabinet." "I'll build one," Evelyn replied. "I'm still handy." Grayson showed up the next day carrying a large black book with thick archival pages. "I've been scanning the ones you let me borrow," he said. "Thought it was time we preserved them." He opened to the first page. At the center, in gold ink, he'd written, "This is your legacy." Below it, taped neatly, was a kindergarten drawing, one Evelyn hadn't seen in years. A lopsided stick figure labeled Ms. B with stars all around it. She blinked hard, touched the page like it might dissolve. "You saved this?" Grayson smiled. "You saved me first." Across town, Carly was trying to rewrite her own narrative. She posted a photo of her wedding dress hanging in a boutique window, lace and light, captioned, "Chapter still loading, daughter, fresh start." But the comments didn't go her way. "Girl, you might want to start with an apology, not a dress. Imagine pretending nothing happened when the internet has receipts. Didn't Grandma just survive you in court and life?" Carly turned off comments within hours. By then, Evelyn had already decided what to do with the last $3,000 from her discretionary fund. She made one final call to Parks and Rec. "I'd like to donate a bench," she said. "Any special wording?" the clerk asked. Evelyn paused. "Yes, just this, to those who remember kindness." It was installed 2 weeks later beneath an oak tree in the east corner of Roseland Park, the one near the old swing sets and the rose-covered arbor where Abigail once played piano for a summer concert. Grayson, Lana, and a handful of former students came to the small unveiling. No speeches, no ribbons, just presence. One woman brought her toddler, another left a granola bar on the bench like an offering. By sunset, someone had placed a laminated photo on the armrest. Evelyn, standing in front of her old classroom, arms crossed, grin crooked. By Friday, a line of chalk messages had been written on the sidewalk nearby. She made me brave. Her detention slips came with a side of life advice. I showed up because she did. The bench made it onto local social feeds within days. No hashtags, just location pins and stories. Took my kid to the park, found this bench. Sat for an hour thinking about Ms. Barrett. We were lucky to have her. Evelyn didn't repost. She didn't need to. But she did walk there the next morning, early, before anyone else arrived. She sat down gently, folded her hands in her lap, and let the quiet do what it did best. Restore. Lana joined her minutes later with 2 thermoses of coffee. "You seeing all this online?" she asked. Evelyn nodded toward the messages at their feet. "I see it where it counts." They sat in silence. Then Evelyn spoke, eyes fixed on the horizon. "She'll try something new soon. She won't disappear." Lana took a slow sip. "And what will you do?" Evelyn's gaze didn't waver. "I'll keep building what she can't burn." The message came at 2:14 a.m. No subject line, no salutation, just 4 words, hastily typed, "Can we talk? Please." Evelyn stared at the notification glowing on her phone screen. No punctuation, no apology, no mention of what exactly needed talking. She didn't open it, didn't even hesitate. With one smooth motion, she deleted it and set the phone face down on the nightstand. The moonlight from the hallway fell across her quilt, and Evelyn turned over slowly, breath steady, heart unbothered. She didn't sleep with fury. She slept with finality. The next morning, Deshawn arrived at the house carrying a briefcase and a brown paper bag of cinnamon scones. "Estate's finalized," he said as she poured coffee. "Carly is out, permanently, irrevocably. Even if she contests, she has no standing." "And the trust?" Evelyn asked. "Fully active. Abigail's name will head the scholarship branch, the AB Fund. We're redirecting all family-held assets to educational initiatives. That includes the downtown property and the dividend account." Evelyn took a long sip. "No more loopholes?" "Not one," Deshawn confirmed. "We've erased every legal tether she could pull." Evelyn smiled, not with glee, but with clarity. "Good. Then let's make it public." Deshawn raised an eyebrow. "As in?" "I want the Barrett Legacy website updated," she said. "Remove the family tree image, upload the revised succession file. No fanfare, just transparency." He nodded. "I'll handle it." As he packed up, he paused. "Anything else you want to include?" Evelyn opened a drawer by the table, pulled out a folded sheet of paper, and handed it to him. "My obituary draft. Keep it with the documents." He unfolded it, read silently. It was barely 2 paragraphs. Evelyn Claire Barrett, age Takes, former educator and community advocate, survived by her great-grandson Grayson and a generation of students who became her proof of purpose. She built legacies, not headlines. Donations in lieu of flowers may be made to the AB Fund. At the bottom, one line typed in bold, "Next of kin, Grayson Ellis, sole executor." No mention of Carly, not even in omission. Deshawn looked up. "This is stark." "It's accurate," Evelyn said. "And that's enough." Word traveled fast in quiet circles. Carly learned of the estate update the way people like her always did, secondhand, screen first, wrapped in disbelief. Her name wasn't just absent from the official record, it had been bypassed entirely. No link to Evelyn, no claim, no path back. She posted a story that night, a close-up of her holding a champagne flute with a sad caption. "Some people rewrite history. Doesn't mean they were right." But even her followers were tired now. One reply read, "Or maybe it means they finally stopped writing you in." That same week, Evelyn returned to her journal. The one she'd begun for Grayson, the one with the green cover and the photo of Abigail tucked inside. She turned to a blank page and wrote, "Mission complete." Below that, a few short lines. "You don't always get to unmake what breaks, but you can break the cycle. Don't wait for applause. Just keep planting." She closed the book gently and returned it to the drawer where she kept the original copy of Abigail's journal, now worn at the spine, but still heavy with intent. Outside, the wind stirred the hydrangeas. Evelyn stood, walked to the hallway mirror, and paused. She didn't adjust her hair or check her face. She just looked at herself and thought, I stayed. I outlasted. I didn't rot. The next day, Lana forwarded an email from the city's legal affairs clerk. Subject, confirmation of lineage update, Barrett file. It was short, clinical. Line of succession officially altered. Digital birth records and local archives updated to reflect corrected estate and kinship status. Carly Barrett, removed by declarative affidavit. Lana added one line beneath it. She's officially out. It's done. That evening, Evelyn returned to Roseland Park, sat on her bench, and watched two teenagers carve initials into a nearby tree. She said nothing. She just smiled faintly and whispered to herself, she was never going to break me. I was never hers to ruin. The Barrett dining room hadn't hosted this many people in over a decade. The long table, once used mostly for sorting bills and quiet breakfasts, now gleamed beneath soft yellow lamplight. Folded linen napkins, candles flickering inside mason jars, vases of tulips, clipped from Evelyn's own garden that morning. Grayson had set the playlist, jazz and cello, the kind of music that moved through the room like breath. Evelyn stood at the head of the table, watching as coats were hung, laughter echoed down the hallway, and shoes shuffled softly across the old parquet floor. She didn't announce the night as her birthday dinner. That part had come and gone. This was different. The hand-lettered card beside each plate read, Living Legacy Dinner, One Life, Many Roots, Speak if moved, Eat regardless. Lana clinked her glass gently and welcomed the group, 22 guests in all, former students, teachers, colleagues, a librarian Evelyn once trained during summer reading sessions. Grayson sat on Evelyn's left, his posture straight but his eyes soft, already misting from the mood. They served brisket and herb potatoes, rosemary rolls, 2 kinds of pie. No speeches were planned, but they came anyway. The woman from the bakery stood first. I flunked pre-algebra twice, she said, voice shaking a little. Mrs. Barrett was the only adult who told me I was more than test scores. Now I run the books for a place that feeds 3 neighborhoods. A man with silver hair and a poet's cadence followed. She stayed after school for 6 weeks just to help me learn the Gettysburg Address. I got through it. Then she made me recite it backwards, said it was to make sure I understood it, not just memorized. Laughter, nods, clinks of glasses. Evelyn didn't speak. She just listened, eyes steady, hands folded, face unguarded. Grayson stood last. I won't pretend I remember my mom, he said, but I remember this house. I remember Grandma's voice reading me stories even when I couldn't sleep because the grief in this place had its own heartbeat. He paused, then opened the large black scrapbook and placed it in front of Evelyn. I added the last 2 pages, he said. Photos from the bench, sidewalk messages, that laminated picture someone left by the roses. This is your legacy. You gave it to us. Now we're giving it back. She reached for the book slowly, blinking hard. Thank you, was all she could manage. But it landed like scripture. The room stayed full, the air unburdened, the house humming. Outside, the evening was cool and windless. A black sedan pulled slowly down the street, stopping halfway up the block, engine idling. Inside sat Carly, eyes fixed on the glowing windows of the house she no longer had keys to. She saw the cars parked in the driveway, the movement of silhouettes behind the glass, heard faint laughter through her cracked window. She didn't get out, didn't park, didn't wave. She sat for a minute longer, jaw clenched tight, fingers gripping the steering wheel like it owed her something. Then she drove away. No horn, no headlights, no parting glance. Inside, Evelyn never turned to look. She was mid-conversation with a former student who now taught night classes and had brought her a small potted cactus labeled, "For surviving everything and still being kind." As the final pie plates were cleared, Lana leaned close and whispered, "She was outside. Didn't come in." Evelyn tilted her head slightly. "I know. You saw her?" "No," she said. "I didn't need to." The final toast came unprompted. An older man near the window raised his glass. "To rooms that stay full, and to those who earn it." The clink of glasses echoed through the room like a benediction. Evelyn looked around, not with pride, but with peace. These weren't guests. They were anchors. She touched the scrapbook one last time, then closed it gently. There was no more room in the book. But the story wasn't finished yet. The morning after the dinner, the house was still, soft with the kind of stillness that doesn't mean empty, just complete. Evelyn walked barefoot through the backyard garden. It was damp from a light overnight rain, and the air carried the scent of soil and old stone. Her footsteps made no sound over the moss path, only the gentle swish of her cardigan brushing her hips. She moved slowly, touching leaves like names in a book. Each flower bed had a small wooden stake tucked into the soil, a name burned into each one. Harold, by the patch of mountain laurel near the old swing. Abigail, among the bleeding hearts and purple crocus. Daniel, next to the stubborn marigolds that never bloomed until late. Even Mrs. Callahan, her first principal, beside the white lilies that refused to die. Lana followed a few paces behind, coffee in hand. "Every one of these has a story, doesn't it?" she asked. Evelyn nodded, reaching for the snapdragon near the back fence. "They all earned their roots?" Lana paused when she noticed one flower at the far edge. Deep red zinnias, vibrant and bright. But no stake, no name, no tag. She pointed. "What about that one?" Evelyn didn't answer immediately. She turned to face the zinnias. The petals caught the morning light like stained glass. "That one's for who I almost became," she said quietly. "If I'd stayed quiet." Lana said nothing, but the silence filled with understanding. They walked back toward the house together. The garden behind them didn't need witnesses. It had been seen. The next day, Grayson found the envelope. It was tucked inside Evelyn's roll-top desk, beneath a stack of old utility bills and lesson plans yellowed with time. The envelope was thick, the flap sealed with a wax stamp, the same stamp Evelyn used on letters when she wanted something to last. On the front, in crisp ink, "To be opened after my final breath." ECB Grayson didn't open it. Not yet. He set it down beside the coffee pot and stared at it for a long time, heart caught between reverence and dread. Then he made himself a cup of chamomile tea, her favorite, and sat at the table like it might bring her closer. The letter was opened 5 weeks later. Evelyn passed on a Friday, just before dawn, her hands folded across her chest and the air in the house quiet enough to hear the echo of old jazz from a forgotten speaker in the hall. Grayson waited 2 days, then he opened the envelope. Inside, a handwritten note in Evelyn's looping cursive, a final copy of her will, trust transfer documents clean and binding, a photo of the garden with the zinnias circled in red. The note read, "Grayson, if you're reading this, I've finally let go of this beautiful, bruised world. Everything has been arranged. You are my keeper, not of assets, but of intention. Use the fund to keep kids warm, fed, curious, and loved. Let them be wild and hard to categorize. As for Carly, let her name fade or let her fight it, but never let her rewrite what we protected. She asked why I was alive. I left her a lifetime to figure it out. Let them remember what silence cost them. With clarity, Evelyn Claire Barrett." Grayson folded the letter slowly, not crying, just absorbing. He reached for the photo and traced the red circle with his thumb. Outside, the garden waited. Nothing bloomed for applause, only because Evelyn had planted well.